most of them had good intentions, but so did Hitler.
That's Ammon Bundy, activist, militant, vlogger,
Show me where I lied.
and also one of the most infamous fugitives in America. Bundy rose to notoriety as the instigator of not one, but two major armed standoffs with the feds. In 2014, Bundy and dozens of supporters faced off against federal agents at his family's Nevada ranch after authorities came to seize their cattle that had been grazing on public land. Bundy was the cowboy hat-wearing ringleader who got enormous media attention portraying himself as a symbol of anti-government resistance in the West. To others, he was a dangerous militant. Fast forward to 2016. Bundy led another armed occupation, this time at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge in Oregon, demanding that public land be returned to local control. The standoff lasted 41 days and ended with Bundy spending 2 years in jail before being acquitted. And after running for governor in 2022, Bundy has been back in the headlines again. In Idaho, he led a harassment campaign against a hospital and its staff. That resulted in a judgment of more than $50 million. And a warrant is currently out for his arrest. I'm in southern Utah, around 3 hours south of Salt Lake City, on my way to meet Ammon Bundy. There are several different versions of who he is, depending on who you ask. To some people, he is this folkloric freedom fighter and protector of his people, of his land. He is an anti-government activist, he's a rancher. To other people, he's a menace. To the people in that hospital, he was a menace, he was a danger. Bundy is still a wanted man in the state of Idaho. So before meeting with him, I wanted to check in with the police department that issued the warrant.
You've reached Deputy Montag with the Ada County Sheriff's Office. If this is an emergency, please hang up and dial 911. If not, please leave your name, number, and a brief message, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Hey, my name's Richard Hall. I'm a journalist with The Independent. I'm just calling to ask for some information about the status of Ammon Bundy's arrest warrant. I'm going to leave my number. He's on the run right now. Technically, he's a fugitive, and he hasn't gone into hiding, which is the interesting thing. He's just come back to where he feels comfortable. One of the things I'm curious about is why he chose here, and what he plans to do when eventually the law does catch up to him.
Amazon packages, huh? We build exhaust brakes here. You know, they're for diesel trucks.
We chat while he works. Bundy, a Mormon, is married with 6 kids, 3 boys and 3 girls. He grew up as one of 14 children, heavily influenced by his father, Cliven, whose ranch was at the center of the first standoff. The Bundys first came to this very area, what, in the 1800s, right?
Not the Bundys, it's actually my grandmother's side. My family established that area in 1877.
They would have been among the first people coming to this area.
They were the first people that came.
Did you have strong views about the government's role in people's lives?
In 2014, it was a culmination of like 30 years of battle, you know, legal battles and stuff. I didn't know the whole government was so corrupt. They were trying to set up a prosecution against us before we had even done anything.
He tells his side of the story from the 2 armed standoffs in Nevada and Oregon that made him a national figure, the second of which left 1 person dead, killed by police. And once the work is done, he agrees to sit down with me so I can ask him the one question that everyone wants answered. Why haven't you been arrested yet, do you think? I mean, this warrant is there. Usually it's a pretty straightforward process, isn't it? Why haven't they come to take you away?
Utah was really good to us over the whole, Bundy Ranch thing. A lot of people from this area came and supported us down there. I got a text actually earlier, I ought to go get it. It's from a local reporter here. I'm just gonna read you what she said. I think your family will continue to thrive here. I know the sheriff has pretty much told his guys to stand down on your warrants.
Okay, I'm going to pause for a second here. I reached out to the sheriff's office in Cedar City to ask if what the reporter said was true. They did not respond. Back to Bundy.
I have never, stolen anything, damaged anything, hurt anybody.
That's a claim that Bundy's critics would take issue with. The case he fled began with a sick baby in Idaho that Bundy used to kickstart a war about parental rights. The baby, the grandchild of one of his associates, was severely malnourished and unwell when its parents missed an appointment with doctors. Medical staff referred the case to Child Protective Services, and police took the baby from its parents to St. Luke's Hospital in Idaho for urgent treatment. Furious at this government intervention, Bundy led protests at the hospital and homes of the staff. A jury ordered him and his associates to pay $53 million after the hospital won a defamation lawsuit. Bundy skipped court and eventually skipped town. If you could go back and do it differently now, would you change anything?
No, we were completely peaceful.
Eric Stidham, the lawyer who represented St. Luke's Hospital at Bundy's trial, says otherwise. I called him to talk through how Bundy summoning his supporters to the hospital resulted in sick patients unable to go to the ER.
Mr. Bundy went there immediately after the ambulance had been taken there, and he and a crowd of followers immediately showed up, started filming themselves and broadcasting it on social media. And Mr. Bundy, playing for the cameras, began to rant and talk about breaching the hospital and demanding the baby back and all sorts of things along these lines. That resulted in that emergency room having to shut down for a couple of hours because of the threat of breach.
Do you accept that some people might have been hurt along the way?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to happen, like, for example, the doctor who first saw baby Cyrus when they took him to St. Luke's Hospital. She's just a young doctor. She's probably thinking she's going to do the best she can, whatever. She probably loves kids, but she threatened CPS on this family that did nothing wrong. Well, I'm speaking out against that. Well, do you think that affects her? Yeah, that affects her. So yeah, people get hurt along the way. You have to do that.
Not everyone would agree. The 10-month-old baby was diagnosed with severe malnutrition and dehydration that could have been fatal. Hospital staff said they were just trying to save the baby's life. Bundy responded by appealing to his thousands of supporters to harass those healthcare workers, arguing that the baby was kidnapped.
We had testimony regarding the nurse practitioner and doctor at trial, and they testified about the trauma that they and their families experienced because of this. We had a forensic psychologist come on who had spent time with them. She testified to the trauma and the post-traumatic stress that they were experiencing. And then you had all these other folks who were not plaintiffs, including a doctor who was at that original emergency room and really was a hero for what she did. Mr. Bundy was outside and saving that baby. She was harassed so mercilessly that she ended up leaving the country.
I suggest to Bundy that the doctor and others involved in the child's treatment were just trying to do what they thought was best for a sick baby.
Absolutely. I think most of them were, had good intentions. They really believed. But so did Hitler.
So what's your reaction to that statement?
That's in keeping with what we learned in this case when we spent a lot of time with the extremist experts who were following Mr. Bundy. They do go through a process of othering. Sometimes that is to make false claims of pedophilia. They would, using terms like wicked, all of which internally to the group help identify this as an enemy. When Mr. Bundy's talking in those terms, it reflects the underlying, his philosophy and what was reflected in the groups he controlled, that there was this other, the state or others complicit with the state, who was transgressing on what they had determined to be the moral right, and that the consequences to them were not significant.
Bundy has no regrets to this day. He sees himself as a guard against government overreach, even tyranny.
If you don't have a right to decide how you're going to raise your children, the medical care your children are going to receive, the schools your children are going to go to, what clothes you're going to, and food you're going to feed your children, then you've lost one of your most important fundamental rights. And that's what this was about. It's about fascism, government and corporations, coming together and restricting rights, infringing rights, and saying basically, well, we have a right to take your kid whenever we decide. And I fundamentally am against that. Like, in every way, I don't agree. I've grown to recognize that I have this kind of innate, this nature to try to defend people that need help defending.
Now, having fled Idaho with his wife and children, he considers the matter closed.
I'm here in another state, clear outside of the jurisdiction there. I came here, I'm not asking for anything. I mean, look at the extremes I went. I left my house. I displaced my entire family into another state. I planned on being there my entire life, but I left it for peace. And I hope they don't continue to pursue and to pursue and to pursue, because I really don't want to leave the United States. And I really don't want to have to stop and make a stand.
That sounds like a veiled threat of another standoff from Ammon Bundy. He seems to think that moving to another state should wipe the slate clean for his actions in Idaho. For now, the local cops appear to be leaving him alone. My emails and phone calls to the sheriff's office here in Cedar City and in Idaho have gone unanswered. But just because Bundy wants it to be over doesn't mean it is. He declared bankruptcy earlier this year, but a Utah judge ruled that he has to comply with requests from St. Luke's for more information about his finances. It's a showdown, playing out in slow motion, one that may never end.